We are MythVision. Welcome back to MythVision Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Lambert. We are dealing with the cult, yes, I said cult of Scientology, with our special guest, Karen de la Carriere. How are you today, Karen?
Good. Lovely great. I missed you, Derek.
I missed you as well. It's time that we did another recording.
You now live on the West Coast.
The best coast.
You're in North Carolina. You're in the Seattle, Washington area, right?
Yes. Well, I'm 3 hours south of that, but either way.
Washington anyway. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so today, I want everybody to take a closer look at her YouTube channel. Please go subscribe to Surviving Scientology. She has countless videos dealing with Scientology. She had a child that she lost due to Scientology. She continues to expose the nuttiness, craziness, obsessive, cultic realities in which this cult is still practicing harmful things. It's not like they've reformed and found a way to defang the horrific things they do. Their master, their leader, their president, their dictator is still in charge, and the cult is still there, even though it's slowly, I hope, and continuously dying off. I hope it continues to do so. Go check out some of our previous interviews as well that we've done together there, but show her some love, hit the bell, subscribe, check out her videos. But Karen, what are you bringing to us today?
Hello, everybody. There's lots of hot developments. So learn all about it in this show. There's hot developments. 3 young Australian kids, Valeska Paris, Gawain Baxter and his wife Laura, were human trafficked on the ship Scientology calls FREEWINDS. FREEWINDS sails in the Caribbean. And at a very young age, these 3 kids had to do hard manual labor with excruciating punishments if they did not obey. So let's roll forward in time. They put out a lawsuit on human trafficking, slave labor, and the conduct. The church took away their childhood and enslaved them. The lawyer representing them, Neil Glazer, just won gigantically on that cult in northern upstate New York called NXIVM. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. NXIVM made global headlines because the founder, Keith Raniere, demanded sexual intercourse from the followers and branded their thighs and inner legs with a hot iron. Talk about cult. This was, but it was funded by a billionaires of some big whiskey alcoholic company. Anyway, it had funds and it went on and on. Neil Glazer took them on. He is now the lawyer representing Valeska and the Baxters. Now, when you serve a lawsuit, people who are interested parties, defendants, have to be served. Otherwise, they can say, I didn't even know. I didn't know. No one told me. All hogwash. 14 times. Valeska's team tried to serve David Miscavige. And the security guards would say, oh, we don't know. He doesn't work here. He doesn't live here. This was all evading service. They thought they could get away with it. Well, here's the breaking news. Judge Thomas Barber read this and fed up with this ongoing cat and mouse game. Oh, you can't serve David Miscavige. He's not here. He ordered the service be done, and it can be done through the lawyers or through publication, whatever. He ordered it. That's the end of David. Now, for the first time, perfect picture, In 30 years, David Miscavige has never, ever been able to be served to be the interested party in a lawsuit. He's now served. You know why he's in hiding so much, Derek? He can't answer hard questions. How can he answer how many times he punched people's noses, had blood dripping down? He slammed people against walls. He punched them in the gut. He can't. How can he answer such questions in discovery of his brutality? This guy was a mobster, a gangster, right? He didn't even get a GED. He was just a thug from Philadelphia, a gangster. And he's the dictator of Scientology. Any comments, Dave? Any comments from you, Derek?
I have heard many, many accounts about David. I am glad that they're finally cutting out the crap and just going for the guy. I'm sure he's going to evade a lot of issues if he can when they get him into court and actually try to address some problems. But I am interested in seeing this whole cult fall apart. I really do want to see it fall apart. And just so I'm on the same page here, Valeska Paris here, this is an image of her. Another one where she's on FREEWINDS. And is this her in her uniform?
Yes,
as a Scientologist?
Left-hand side, yeah. Now, Valeska was kidnapped and imprisoned on FREEWINDS to keep her away from her mom. Her mother was also CO. She escaped and fled and went on French national TV talking about the exorcism of these attached spirits. That's the main doctrine of Scientology. Scientology is a bridge of different levels. And from OT3 to OT8, really from earlier than that, even say OT1 to OT2 to OT8 is just exorcism levels. You actually talk to your spirits. You have conversations with them before you jettison them out of your system. And Scientology believes they will make you a god. We'll talk more about that later. They will make you a high, powerful, immortal spirit, invincible, a Superman, Superwoman. But only they have the techniques to do it. They're the only ones that know how to get you to expel your attached spirits.
Right.
Right.
So cultic, by the way, that they're the only one. Yeah.
They're the only one. Every other religion is phony, baloney, huffing, puffing. They don't know what they're talking about. The other religions are a scam. We have the answers. So Valeska was quickly shipped to FREEWINDS as imprisonment. They've done this over and over again. When you see a ship cruising the Caribbean, registered, it's not registered in any United States. It's smoke and mirrors registered.
Like internationally, technically.
No, there's some place where you can keep registering. Anyway, the point is that they're out of jurisdiction of the FBI, right? The FBI can't just raid the ship. Now, Valeska was there for 12 years, throughout her teenage years, and Scientology's response is to make a hate page on her, saying, "Oh, she's a liar, she's lying." They don't deny she was on FREEWINDS. They even post pictures of her through the years on FREEWINDS. But so Scientology's defense against any heinous accusation is, they're lying. That's it. That's they don't get into specifics. Derek, can you just read a little bit of blurb of what they did to Valeska on FREEWINDS?
Absolutely. So Valeska, Paris, around 2007, I was confined in the extreme heat of the engine room for about 48 hours. I suffered a panic attack, went numb, and was unable to move or call for help. When an engineer discovered me, he carried me to the control room where I was denied medical treatment. I was berated for overreacting and sent back to the engine room. About 2 weeks later, when I was again confined to the engine room as punishment and lost consciousness due to the heat and enclosed conditions, I did not seek medical care because I was afraid of being punished. I tried again to leave the ship. Upon learning that I wanted to leave, the senior officer in charge of discipline informed me that I was going to be declared a suppressive for being uncooperative, and she removed me from my dorm and escorted me to a cabin monitored by a camera, where I was placed under around the clock surveillance. I was then forced to go back to work in the hot confines of the engine room and be interrogated daily for the next 3 months. At that point, I was so desperate to get off the ship that I contemplated suicide. Unfortunately, I was sent somewhere worse. I was sent to an RPF site in Australia, prison camp, to be rehabilitated. I was prohibited from bringing most of my belongings, and they made me pack a bag in the hallway in front of a camera to make sure I did not take more than they permitted. While packing, I was approached by a security officer and an FSSO official who told me that I needed to come with them. I was also instructed to put on makeup. We went to a room where there was a video camera and a total of 4 people, including security, an ethics officer, and FSSO representatives. They told me that I had to sign the documents in front of me. I was not given sufficient time to read through the documents, nor was I permitted to take the documents to review or have someone like an attorney help me understand them. And I was afraid that asking questions about the documents would lead to further punishment.
Yes. The engine room punishment was the worst of the worst. Oxygen breathing was very low. I know of another South African girl, people would literally go unconscious. When you were sent to the engine room, you were supposed to chip paint or clean the metal hour after hour after hour after hour in this dark, smelly, lack of oxygen space right down in the bowels of the ship. And this is the way Scientology treats its staff. The whip! You obey or else. And people live in fear of this kind of punishment. They live in fear. You know, she's fearful in her little write-up to the court where she says it. Valeska was made to go unconscious at least 3 times, maybe 4 times. She would just pass out. She could have done, nobody even noticed because she was just lying there unconscious. Now, let's take a look at this, Derek. Scientology huffs and puffs of how they handle your trauma and unconsciousness. That's what they sell. We're going to let you run through your anesthesia. We're going to run through that time you passed out, and we're going to revitalize you. And here, they're making and inducing unconsciousness. Any comment?
The whole thing is just insane.
It's grotesque.
Yeah. I mean,
How in the world did the IRS give this monster tax exemption?
That's something also that I definitely want to take a deep dive with you on. I mean, do you want to go into that here?
Well, I'd like to give you some highlights, but it's worthy of a show in itself. They blackmailed and bullied the IRS to get this. It's just amazing because this is a vast government agency, right? With tens of thousands of staff. And you know what they did? Scientology has little satellite spin-off not spin-off, they're actual, they call themselves churches or orgs, organizations. And they're dotted around all over the place. Some of them are just an apartment, a room on the second floor, someone's wanting to preach it or give counseling. So they have them dotted all over. So they got 2,500 different people to file lawsuits on the IRS. 2,500. You know, every little town in multiple states. So now the IRS have 2,500 lawsuits from Scientology. When you get a lawsuit, you have to respond. You can't run away because you default. You have to then use your resources, use your lawyers, use your energy, time, money, effort. And this is what David Miscavige said.
The IRS issued letters recognizing Scientology and every one of its organizations as fully tax-exempt. The war is over!
He did a video of triumph, which was called "The War is Over." Look at the wording. He called the IRS battle a war. And in this triumph video, he says that he and his assistant, Marty Rathburn, just arrived at the IRS, rang the bell at the main headquarters, and said, "We want to see the commissioner, the IRS commissioner. That's the guy right on top." And they let them in. This is according to Miscavige. I'll send you the clip. And they went to the office and they sat down and said, "You know what? We'll evaporate the 2,500 lawsuits. We'll make it all go away. Let's be friends. But we want IRS tax exemption." Not only did they have 2,500 lawsuits, they individually plucked out high execs in the IRS and individually sued them. Plus, they organized bundles of people waiting outside main IRS offices, like in Fresno, California. And when they would come out for lunch, they would have huge signs of great malicious, bad language, calling them all kinds of names. So it was orchestrated from many sides, individual lawsuits. So what David Miscavige tells the head honcho, we'll make it all go away. We'll stop all the demonstrations outside IRS buildings. We'll withdraw all the lawsuits on your main executives. We'll withdraw the 2,500. Just give us tax exemption. So the deal was struck. But do you see how
manipulative? It's the whole thing. Yeah, that's like mob mentality. If we don't get our way, we will get our way. And they got their way. And that's just mind-boggling. And now I'm hoping people like Valeska Paris and others are going to cause a re-examination that reverses this kind of role. I mean, it's a facade. This doesn't look like a real religion. I mean, I'm not going to say, maybe I should word this a different way. I think that if organizations like this can have tax exemption, do you know how many other organizations on the world should have tax exemption then? So if we're not going to be fair to everyone having tax exemption, especially not a cult-like mob, then what are we doing here? I mean, we're really giving these people free reign to keep growing and trying to do more manipulative stuff. It's in their L. Ron Hubbard scripture, if I could use the term.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very easy in America to start a religion. You can go the Church of Derek Lambert. the Christian Church of Derek's Revelations, and you could just, because of this very loosey-goosey freedom of religion, you can start, you know, the Jedis have a religion?
Yeah.
There are more Jedis in the United Kingdom than there are Scientologists. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, the Jedis are cooler, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, you can file, and you've got to meet some criteria. You've got to have like some doctrines, and then you've got to have some precepts like thou shalt not kill. You can invent your own. Thou shalt not smoke weed more than 10 times a day. As long as you have to have some precepts. You have to have some doctrines, and then you have to have a congregation. You can whip up. You've got tons of friends. You've got to whip up a few church services. You know, and you can preach anything in the church service. You can preach the goodness of artificial intelligence as the new robots that should be bowed to. As long as you have doctrines, you can be a religion. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Start a church?
Yep.
Right. Now, giving tax exemption to something like that is silly, especially Scientology make it a practice of being abusive. And my biggest button on them is the degree of abuse they get away with. You talk to all kinds of academics and university professors and people that know the Bible inside out, upside down, and are learned people on spirituality and religions and stuff. Where does this level of abuse fit in with all these churches and evangelicals and spin-offs? Talk to me, Derek. How can they call themselves a church and use a whip?
You know, there are very old, outdated, if you will, models that still get used today. For example, in extreme circles of Islam, you know, extreme versions of cults. We've found out the FLDS has had some wild sexual claims that have been done to them. And this is in the category of extremism. So like, I wouldn't even put this in the same category as like regular, typical religion. There are various degrees of harmful beliefs that are out there, I'm sure. But this is something that you would imagine the actual mob would do something like this. I mean, obviously, eventually things got so bad that a lot of the mob took Tommy guns and went downtown in New York and just started shooting people up. But my point is like the level of conspiracy that goes into their going against the IRS, even before that, when they got caught with documents from the government and things, like you would imagine that there would be some government official or government agency that would be aware of stuff like this and find a way to like knock this down. But as far as all the professors I speak to, I can't think of a single one who, after hearing the things you're describing and investigating this, would go, oh yeah, this is good. None. I don't care if there's a placebo effect on when you enter the door and they promise you the whole world. You could do that with anything. There are advertisers they get 30-second windows on TV who give you a placebo effect about their medication. Well, this will cure such and such. Side effects will be diarrhea. Da, da, da. But my point is, like, they whisper the side effects. In this case, they're not telling you any of these side effects. They want you only to think of the good. And every academic I know would be like, this is horrible. This is not good.
Yes, thank you, Derek. You mentioned, why isn't there an oversight? Why isn't there somebody? Let me tell you that the IRS went through a reorganization. Government, huge bloated bureaucracies Look at how they now have they have Homeland Security, right? Mm-hmm. They had to redo they used to call it Immigration and Naturalization Service. They reconstruct. When the IRS did a reconstruction, it took away some big VP, we would call it in the corporate world, the vice president for, technology, vice president for they took away the VPs. They don't call them VPs in the IRS, but they took away the head honchos in certain divisions, and they took away the watchdogs on 501c3 abuse. Doesn't exist. There's no one home. They never then replenished and put back someone to look over. So currently, any entities that are flagrantly that are being criminal, as well as having IRS tax exemption, being thugs, like you say, being gangsters, but tax-exempt gangsters. Tax-exempt gangsters.
Under the guise of religion, because they have some cuckoo, wild philosophy and science fiction belief system that is built off of L. Ron Hubbard's imagination. Yeah. Crazy.
Derek, there's hardly a single day where a new person doesn't come out with revelations. And believe me, the IRS are deluged with reports. Deluged. Although the IRS tried to shrug off criminal reports and say, look, report this to the FBI. They want to dump it. FBI investigates criminal. We're just lawyers and CPAs. But the IRS does continuously get shamed for granting the cult tax exemption. It's their shame. And the newer generation of IRS agents, because that was in 1995, they got tax exemption. How long ago is that, Derek?
Almost 20 years. About 17 years ago.
No. 95.
Oh, I'm sorry. Almost 30 years. But I mean, like 27 years ago. Yeah.
So a lot of that regime are long gone. But because they were so, the IRS newer generation, don't forget the demonstrations with hideous placards and this technique of suing IRS agents individually. The IRS is not a friend to the cult of Scientology. But all these videos and everything Mike Rinder does. Did you know Mike Rinder's new book?
Yes.
Arrives in. Ooh.
I'm going to be interviewing him about it. Yes. I'm excited.
That's really good. Everybody is just waiting for this book because he knew a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just end off this segment because we're doing a second video to tell you that Mike Rinder and Marty were texting two IRS agents multiple times a day. And a raid on their campus was imminent. And then it all went wrong. By accident, the author of the book, Going Clear, leaked this, I think on Twitter, or so he leaked something. And it just blew up. And the two agents who were taking all this data of what was going on at the hierarchy, they were shipped off to North Dakota, Pine Barrens, into the boonies of nowhere. And that was the end of that. It was an almost. The IRS were almost going to the IRS, the department. No, they were texting the Department of Justice. I'm sorry, I'm getting this all wrong. They were texting FBI. It was FBI that was going to do the raid. But FBI, IRS, they all intertwine in terms of sharing data. So the FBI were incredibly briefed on the madness. It was like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Miscavige was literally an insane, there was a Roman Caesar who was very, very cruel.
Caligula,
who granted his horse a senate. Well, David Miscavige is a sort of Caligula in the way he treats people. And he can't take it back. You can't unring the bell. Anyway, so we're into, right now, Scientology. I'm going to end this off by saying Scientology is fighting 3 civilian lawsuits, 2 criminal lawsuits. These 5 lawsuits have bubbled up and are front and center, all starting around the 11th of October. Today is the 18th of September. That's 10. So in about 20 days, the volcanoes start bubbling up with revelations and explosions. And that's why I feel Scientology is on a precipice. They cannot hide their misconduct. They can no longer hide. Miscavige has to be on the stand to answer hard questions. Mike Rinder's book comes out, and these lawsuits, day after day after day, the dirt will be exposed for the world to read and learn. And I'm so glad you've given them a little teaser in this video of what's about to happen in 20 days' time. Fasten your safety belt, brace for impact. It's happening.
Thank you so much, Karen. This is going to be, I'm telling you, keep your eyes open on the news. Keep checking in. We're going to keep dropping content. And if anything crazy happens, we're going to jump on it. So you will be able to see what's going on and hear what's happening on the ground. We are connected with other people who are involved, and make sure you go subscribe to her YouTube channel, because she's also going to be wanting to put the content out there. So hit the bell so you're notified anytime she drops a new clip. And Karen, you're an OG, as we call it, somebody who's an original gangster in terms of being a follower who was on the boat with L. Ron Hubbard. You know what you're talking about. Your husband was very important in this. You've lost a child because of this, and you've spent your years exposing the cult. And of course, let's see what happens in the next month. I'm interested to see what happens with this cult.
Great. Absolutely. Well spoken, Derek. You just say so much in a few words. Well done. Good job.
Thank you, Karen.
You're rooting for all these people trapped in this. They're trapped and they're imprisoned. And I feel that you really want their freedom. You really want this to end for the greater good for all. Thank you, Derek. Thanks a million. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.